Every year I have CPAs and attorneys and enrolled agents and treasurers of nonprofits contact me, and maybe it's the first year that they've prepared a 990EZ or a 990, or they don't have much experience, and so they just want me to have a look at the return and make sure there's no problems with it before they file it with the IRS. And so over the years, I've reviewed hundreds of returns, and there's kind of a common group of issues that I find that just happen all the time and cause problems with the return. So when you prepare a return, normally what you would do is get a copy of last year's return and have a look at it. But you can't rely on it too heavily because you don't know whether last year's preparer had any idea what they were actually doing. Okay. Also, if you're using now, you're going to be using electronic software to do it. And one of the things that happens is the answers that were typed into last year's return are going to roll forward into the new return. And it's easy just to gloss over those things and say, well, they were answered last year. We'll just do it the same as last year. Not a good idea. Okay. So first, let's have a look at the schedule at the 990EZ. And I want to go over just a couple things. First of all, the tax exempt status here on Section J of the heading. You'd be surprised how many people get this wrong. Okay, it just asks, are you a 501c3 or are you a 501c4 or a 501c6 or 501c7? And it's on the determination letter. Okay, you can also look it up on the IRS website in most cases if you're not sure. But as an example, an organization that was a amateur sports club, soccer, they had a new preparer, and he saw the word club in their name, and he just assumed they were a social club, and so he prepared the return as though they were a 501c7. Okay, and the IRS was very confused and not very happy. Because there was no Schedule A. 501c7 doesn't have to file a public support schedule. And so one thing led to another, and $30,000 in penalties, which fortunately I was able to get them out of. So this is a serious part of the return. On Block H over here, check this box if the organization is not required to attach Schedule B. The IRS is very sensitive about this box, okay? If you are not going to attach Schedule B, you had better check that box, okay? Or you will receive correspondence from the IRS. Schedule B is where you report your large donors, okay? So if you have any donors that gave $5,000 or more during the year, you're probably going to need to disclose them on Schedule B. The next thing is net assets or fund balances at the end of the year. Line 21 needs to agree with line 27 on the balance sheet, okay, end of year fund balance. That's really the first thing I look at when I pick up a return. That's the first financial part that I look at, whether your net assets agrees. If not, I know there's a problem, okay? The other thing is your statement of program service accomplishments. This is where you talk about how many dogs you rescued, how many homeless people you fed, how many theater productions you put on, how many students attended your school, that type of thing. And like I was saying earlier, if you fill this out, let's say in 2023, the same description normally in the software rolls over to 2024. So you want to make sure you go in there and you update those program service descriptions, because if you're applying for grants or something like that, the grantor is probably going to look at that. If you have prospective donors who are increasingly starting to use Form 990EZ, they're going to be reading that. Okay. Let's see. The other thing is on page 3 of the 990EZ, were any significant changes made to the organizing or governing documents? They're just asking you, did you amend your articles of incorporation? Okay. It's easy just to answer no, to assume, well, no, I didn't hear anything about that. Ask the organization's president or secretary or treasurer or whoever's active. And you might also double check if you can. I know in Florida, I can look up on the SunBiz website any nonprofit corporation and check to see, did they amend their articles? Okay. Let's see what else. Okay, at the end of the Form 990EZ, it asks you, did the organization complete Schedule A? So they're letting you know, hey, this is important, okay, to us, to the IRS. All Section 501c3 organizations must attach a completed Schedule A. That's where you show that you're publicly supported, okay? If you check no and you're a 501c3, that's going to be a problem. And if you check yes, of course you should, that's the only correct answer for a 501c3, then you better have a Schedule A attached. Let's take a quick peek at Schedule A. Like I said, this is the public charity status and public support test. There are 3 common reasons why you're a public charity. Or the way they state it, why are you not a private foundation? If you're a school, like a private school, you check box 2, and that tells you, the IRS, that you're publicly supported. You're considered a public charity because you are a school. Okay, you don't have to do a public support test, but you do have to attach Schedule E, which is the racially non-discriminatory policy page. Okay, and that's very important. The other 2 common types of 501c3s are organizations that normally receive a substantial part of their support from the governmental unit or from the general public. That's what we call a donative charity. Okay, you get most of your revenue from donations from the public. The other type is a program service charity. That would be box 10. And that's where you get most of your revenue from fees that you charge for services. Okay, maybe you're an amateur sports team and you charge registration to your players. Okay, there are some minor differences in that I want to talk about. So if you're a donative charity, you're going to fill out the Part 2 public support test, and it just looks at your contributions. Okay, and basically backs out contributions from really large donors. Okay, I'm not going to go into all that detail, but the point is that it only considers contribution revenue. It does not consider revenue from your program services. Okay, but they do ask on line 12 gross receipts from related activities. So if you have a lot of income from donations, but you also have some programs where you charge fees, registration fees or something, in box 12, that's where you put the total of the registration fees that you've received during the 5 years that are covered by this support test. Now, it's not part of the calculation, but the IRS does compare it. It compares your program service fees to your total contributions, and essentially you want to make sure that your contributions are higher than your program service fees. Otherwise, if they're too out of whack, the IRS may question your public support status under this test. However, you still may qualify, probably will qualify, under Part 3, a support schedule for program service charities, okay, which takes into account not only your contributions, but also your program service fees. Okay, so that's all I want to say about the Schedule A. Make sure you fill out the right part of the Schedule A, and if you're not sure if you're a donative charity or if you're a program service charity, check the organization's determination letter. That's where it tells you. And if you don't qualify under the original type of public charity, you can qualify under the other. Okay, that's okay. Whichever one you qualify under is good. Now, what about the full Form 990? There were just a couple of things I wanted to talk about on here. One is the to emphasize again whether or not you attach the Schedule B, very important. The question is not in the header. The question is on page 3, okay? But it's still just as important. The other thing is the policies on the governance page. This is part 6, page 6, governance and management policies. It's really easy. Again, on a lot of software, the answers from last year just automatically populate the current year return. But this is where they ask about the various policies, conflict of interest policies, whistleblower policies, determining compensation of officers and directors and key employees. Don't just skip over this, okay? If you don't know the answers to these, make sure you ask the president or the treasurer or whoever's in the know. And let's see if there was anything else I wanted to mention. Nope, that's good. There's a lot more to talk about, but we don't have time to talk about it here. If you are preparing your return, look at these things, okay? And you'll be in much better shape than if you just breeze through them, okay?